Welcome to the NBAV podcast. Welcome back to NBAV, the NBA Avenue podcast, coming to you on October 23rd after opening night, where the Celtics beat the Knicks. They frankly crushed the Knicks off an incredible three-point shooting performance, and then you had the Lakers winning a bit of a closer game, although it never really felt that close, between the Lakers and the Timberwolves. And one of the most interesting parts of these games, and no, I'm not going to be talking too much about Bronny and LeBron James, but to me, it's the fact that these are the two teams, the Knicks and the Timberwolves, who made a massive trade with each other, and you get to see the very first bearings of the fruits of that trade on opening night with both of those teams playing. And I couldn't help but watch these games and think, boy, did the Knicks win this trade. Because despite the fact that the Knicks got blown out and the Celtics hit every shot they took, and Mikal Bridges started slow, and the Knicks, Jalen Brunson, started a little slow and then picked it up, you can't help but realize that Karl Anthony Towns looked really good, and he looked really talented. And yes, it wasn't a game that they were in, it wasn't a game that they could win, but he looked great. And on the flip side, for the Timberwolves, sure, Dante DiVincenzo looked good. He's going to hit his threes. We know that. But Julius Randle showed every flaw that he had from when he was a Knick, in the playoffs, where he's hesitant, he tries to play bully ball, ends up passing it back out after he doesn't get where he wants to go. If he does try to shoot, it's very often a tough shot. Sure, when he was wide open, he was able to hit a couple, but for the most part, Julius Randle showed every reason why he's not a good playmaker. He gets himself into traffic, he gets himself into trouble, and outside of maybe one bucket he scored on Bronny, where maybe it was a foul with the elbow, it was a horrible night for Julius Randle. And I couldn't help but watch that and think, wow, if the Timberwolves could have this one back, maybe they would. If the Timberwolves could have let's do the same trade right now. Send DiVincenzo and Julius Randle back to the New York Knicks in exchange for Karl Anthony Towns. I can't help but think that they would do it because Julius Randle looked really, really not great in that game. And I know he's going to have games where he scores and this and that. But the Timberwolves looked out of sync for majority of the game. I don't really understand how they kept it as close as they did. Sure, well, there was a timely bucket from Anthony Edwards here and there. There was a timely bucket maybe from an Nickeil Alexander-Walker. But for the most part, they just kind of clawed. They just kind of didn't go away. And it was like J.J. Redick said. He said they got back into the game off of a couple of rebounds that went out in transition. And conversely, that's when the Lakers pulled away too. Now, from the Lakers' perspective, there's just one player that I don't understand whatsoever, like why this guy gets so much playing time and what the point of this guy on the team, and that's Max Christie. They gave the guy like $40 million in free agency as an extension this past year, and I just don't know what he brings to the team. He played 11 minutes. He got 2 points, 2 rebounds, and 5 fouls, 6 fouls. The guy, I just don't understand. I mean, sure, like, does he look good in a uniform? He's in a lot of their promos, a lot of the games that they play in the arena. Okay, cool. Like, he looks like a basketball player, but, I mean, the guy doesn't do anything on the court. What's the point? How do you give the guy $40 million unless this guy is just a salary filler for some sort of trade? I mean, who in the world is going to want Max Christie for 2 years, $40 million or whatever he got? And then the other storyline from the game is when Bronny James went out there, everyone's saying, oh, they went on a run. The Timberwolves went on a run. Why did that happen? It's not because Bronny was terrible or anything like that. It was just a couple of minutes, less than 3 minutes total. But the problem is you could feel it as you watched it. And I'm sure you felt it in the arena if you were there. Everyone wanted Bronny to shoot a shot. Everyone wanted Bronny to score a basket. Everyone wanted some action between LeBron and Bronny passing the ball back and forth and getting something going, maybe a dunk. But it was too much. The sentiment was too much, reverberating throughout the arena, that it stifled the rest of the offense. People were passing it to LeBron and to Bronny and sort of standing there watching them. It kind of reminded me a little bit of when Jason Tatum was playing against Jaylen Brown in the All-Star game, and everyone wanted to see which of the teammates was better, and they started going one-on-one at each other, and everyone stood around and watched. Here, everyone on the Lakers sort of was standing around watching at times as LeBron and Bronny were passing the ball back and forth to each other, and it's difficult because everyone wants them to have a nice play, and it's sort of something that's bigger than basketball in a way. It's not something they're not really out there for Bronny to go and lead this Lakers team to a championship. It's not really about how incredible of a player Bronny is right now. It's not about him making moves and separating himself. It's about him just getting into a game and playing with his dad. That's why people were watching this, and that's why everyone's going crazy about it on Twitter. It's actually pretty split. There are some people who hated it. They said it was corny. And there were some people who seemed to really enjoy it, as I believe probably the majority, I believe 75, 80% of the people watching must have enjoyed it. I thought it was cool, but it does come at a risk of losing the game every time you do that, because until they can get synchronized and until they can play so much together that it's not really a thought, and it's just like, okay, Bronny's in the game, LeBron's in the game, and nobody's thinking about the fact that it's the first father-son duo ever, it's going to take time to make that work. And they're going to lose, and they're going to get scored on and their offense is not going to execute until they can get that totally to the point where it's just an afterthought. Okay, we've seen them play 100 games together. This is year 3. LeBron is 41, 42. Bronny is playing backup point guard. He comes in, he plays good defense. He gets some dunks in transition, tries to get some blocks. And we don't think about it anymore. Until then, it's going to be tough to play LeBron and Bronny together in a meaningful winning way. Now, what might be more of an option is if the Lakers go up by a lot or down by a lot and it's garbage time, and letting Bronny just get some typical off-the-bench garbage time NBA action without LeBron. Now, that could be a little bit different. You let LeBron do his thing, but it's going to be a little bit icy every time LeBron and Bronny go into the game together, just because it stifles the offense. Everyone watches them. Everyone circles around. Everyone stands in one spot, and they're not quite sure what to do and how to react. Rui Hachimura played incredibly well at the start of this game. Rui looked unbelievable. His footwork was so impressive. And the guy has so much talent. Unfortunately, he kind of went away as the game went on. He came back a little bit late, but the guy is strong. The guy shoots well. He has good footwork. He can rebound. He's tough. He really has so much talent there, and you just want to see him get the most out of it. LeBron was fine. He played fine. Anthony Davis obviously had an incredible night. But this is what you have to expect from Anthony Davis. He's going to do this sometimes. He's not going to do it as consistently as you want. We know this. This is the way he's been for his entire career. So just because he had one monster night does not mean he's going to do it again, because a lot of those buckets that he scored, sure, some were inside, some were dunks, but a lot of them were also two-point shots. A lot of them were also finesse shots, a three or two. So he may not be hitting those shots the next night, and he may not look as forceful the next night. That's commonly what happens with Anthony Davis, but you'll take the hot start and hope that they can sort of get a little run going. That would be really nice if they could start off the season hot. Austin Reeves didn't start off hot, but he played really well going into the second and third quarters. And the thing that worries me about the Lakers long-term is the next guy. It's D'Angelo Russell, because Austin Reeves will competently run the offense at times earlier in the game, and then for some reason, when it comes to the fourth quarter, when it comes to 8 minutes and less to go, D'Angelo Russell is a key part of every action, and it's very worrisome. Why does Russell have more involvement? Why do they trust Russell more in crunch time than Austin Reeves? I know Austin Reeves is out there, but he doesn't seem like he's the first option or second option. It seems like he's maybe the fourth or fifth guy on the floor who's expected to shoot a shot, and when he gets a bucket in transition, this or that, it works out. But for the most part, why do they trust D'Angelo Russell so much in crunch time when Austin Reeves is probably the better option for this team, more consistent? Then you have Gabe Vincent. He did not have a very good game. He had some turnovers. It's going to take some time. Let's see if Gabe Vincent, he hasn't played in meaningful basketball since he was on Miami 2 years ago. Dalton Connect played well. He played well at times. He hit a couple of shots. And then after he hit his first 2 shots, he never scored another bucket for the rest of the game. But still, he had some good energy, and they got into the game. And he showed he can at least hang so far in one game at this level. Jackson Hayes had a good night as well. Max Christie did not have anything going for him. And then Bronny was more just for the show of getting him to play alongside his dad. On the Timberwolves side, Julius Randle, he scored 16 points, but he looked really horrible. And I guarantee you Timberwolves fans are doubting the trade that they made to bring Julius Randle over, and they may be wishing they had Karl Anthony Towns back. Jaden McDaniels did not have a great night. Rudy Gobert did not have a great night. I mean, sure, he got 14 boards with 13 points. He did not have a good night. Rudy was not on top of his game. He got blocked a couple of times, embarrassingly, by Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis really owned him in this game, and early in the game, the Lakers were getting offensive rebound after offensive rebound. They cleaned it up a bit as they went on, but not a good night from Rudy Gobert. An okay night from Anthony Edwards for him, for what he's capable of. Didn't have his best game, but it's a long season. Mike Conley did not have a really good game. Dante DiVincenzo did fine. Alexander Walker did fine. Naz Reid had a horrible game for him. What was happening for the first few quarters with Naz Reid? He couldn't get anything going. He was taking wild layups. He was missing threes. Not good at all. And then Joe Ingles put up a dud. Didn't do anything in the 7 minutes that he played, but his first game as a Timberwolf. So moving forward, we'll have to see what happens with both of those teams. But where on the Western Conference side, the Lakers and Timberwolves side, the Lakers getting this win is enormous. Because every win in the Western Conference is enormous. And the Timberwolves losing is a big loss because every time you lose, it's big. Every time you win, it's big. Every game matters. Whereas for the Knicks, it doesn't have that same impact because at the end of the day, there's teams like Detroit and you have the Detroit and Washington, and you have the Chicago Bulls, and you have the Atlanta Hawks, the Toronto Raptors, the Brooklyn Nets. All of these teams are so terrible that the Knicks are going to be in the playoffs. It's just a matter of, are they going to be a 6 seed? Are they going to be a 4 seed? Are they going to play really well in the regular season and get to the 2 seed? That's the question. But if you ask a Knicks fan, are you worried about not making the playoffs this year? They should not be. Of course they're going to be there. Whereas for the Celtics and Timberwolves, if they get off to rough starts, you never know in the Western Conference. There's so many good teams. You have to contend with the Kings and the Suns and the Nuggets with Jokic, and you have to go at the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Spurs are going to be more competitive, and if you sleep on the Jazz, they'll come out and beat you. The Golden State Warriors still have Steph Curry and some surrounding players, and they're trying to show that they're still around. You have the Lakers. I mean, there's just so much happening in the Western Conference. Every win is big. Every loss is big. And when it comes down to who's going to be in the play-in tournament, who's going to be an outright playoff seed, who's going to be on the outside looking in, there's going to be some really good teams who aren't going to really make it to the playoffs. And it's because of games like this. It's because of regular season games in Game 1, Game 2, Game 3. Every game matters. Whereas in the Eastern Conference, the Knicks can just go out there and try to play well next game. It's not going to matter. OG did not have a great game for the Knicks. Josh Hart did not have a great game for the Knicks. Karl Anthony Towns looked really good in the small amount that he did. He'll get more involved as they go on. Mikal Bridges started off horribly and then got it going in the second half. So at least if you're a Knicks fan, you can look forward and say, hey, Karl Anthony Towns looked great. Mikal Bridges got it going. He's going to settle in. He'll be fine. Josh Hart and OG Anunoby, they'll be fine moving forward. There's no reason to think that they won't be. Jalen Brunson got his scoring touch going. Wasn't a great game, but hey, they're going to be okay. Miles McBride looked sensational. Jericho Sims, a little weak. Jericho Sims did not really show you, what you hope to see in that backup center role. They're really going to need Precious Achiuwa back unless Jericho Sims is able to show something. Cam Payne is another guy who we're not sure if he's going to work out as the backup point guard on this Knicks team. He ended off with 11 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. It looked better than it was. Cam Payne had some good moments, some bad moments. Then you had Dadier who scored a bucket. You had Hukporti in garbage time. You had Tyler Kolek scoring a couple points in garbage time, and Jacob Toppin got into the game for 3 minutes as well. It's going to be interesting to see how much Tyler Kolek can get in there and how long Cameron Payne will stay in there. Cam Payne has been on good teams before, and he's been on bad teams. I mean, he played last year on Philly. There were points in the season where Philly was good when Embiid was around, and there were points in the season where Philly was pathetic when Embiid was not around, and they lost almost every game without him. And Cam Payne would come in and be a stabilizing force during those times, and he sometimes looked like the only guy who could do anything on the court in moments outside of Tyrese Maxey on that Sixers team, but he also played on the Suns, and he was a good player for the Suns as a backup point guard. It'll be interesting to see if Cam Payne and Jericho Sims ultimately stick on this Knicks team, or will Precious Achiuwa come back in a month? will Tyler Kolek eventually supplant Cam Payne moving forward for the New York Knicks? Now, for the Boston Celtics, they did a shooting display that you're probably not gonna see again for a long time. They have so many incredible players. Jason Tatum started off with a couple of threes from the right wing, and then he missed some from the left, and then suddenly he got it going from the left as well, and it just continued to rain and pour. And Jason Tatum had everything working. He was really coming out there strong, ready to show what he was made of, that the Olympics was not him. He really came in there motivated. Jaylen Brown played well as well. Al Horford looked great. I don't know why he would play when they're up 30. To me, as soon as you have the game in the bag, I would immediately remove Al Horford. You need him, considering that Porzingis is out. I would be testing out Neemias Queta. I would be letting Xavier Tillman get in there a lot more. I don't see any reason to play Al Horford once you're up by 20 points in a ball game. Then you have Drew Holiday, who played really well, and Derek White. These guys are who they are, and they both were on fire. Peyton Pritchard was okay. Sam Hauser did his thing. Xavier Tillman looked all right. Luke Cornett had a moment or two early in the game. Jordan Walsh got in the game, not very high on him. I don't think he has what it takes. And Neemias Queta, who we mentioned, should play more in games where they go up big, and they should take Al Horford out. You need Al Horford to stay healthy as the season goes on. You don't want to tax him too much. I would be very careful. You really want Al to be there for the playoffs as much as you possibly can. And it gives you the opportunity to try guys out like Xavier Tillman and Neemias Queta and Luke Cornett and see how well they can do building into a playoff role, building up to where ultimately you want to be. Now we have a really complete slate of NBA action going to happen tonight. And then we'll have 4 games tomorrow night. And then on Friday, there will be another very, very full slate and another full slate on Saturday. So we're really getting into the swing of things here. Now, I am not going to be recording tomorrow or the day after. I'm going to be away. So it's basically going to be Wednesday night's games tonight. I'm not going to be able to record on that for a couple of days, and then we'll get back and we'll get really, really locked in to the NBA season like we were for these couple of games here. But you're going to have coming up, the Pacers playing the Pistons. Anytime you play the Pistons, you've got to take advantage. So the Pacers should come out there. They should start fast, and they should be able to run the Pistons out of their own building. The Magic are going to be playing the Heat. Now, Orlando is going to be a great regular season team. We'll have to see how it translates into playoff success over time. Will Miami come out and show that they value the regular season more? Will Jimmy really be good to go? These are the questions you're going to have to answer. This game could obviously go either way. Then you'll have the Cavaliers against the Raptors. You'd have to think that the Cavs should have the upper hand. The question is Garland going to play well to start the season alongside Donovan Mitchell? It became clearer last year that the Garland supporters are sort of going by the wayside. It's hard to say that Donovan Mitchell's not the best player on that team. It's really hard to say that they should be building around Garland. And then they have their big men, perhaps not as good as you would like them to be. Let's see what happens. This is a game I would stay away from if you're a betting man. I wouldn't bet on Cavs Raptors. Raptors game 1, who knows? Early in the year, sometimes these teams, they'll have Scotty Barnes, they'll have Kelly Olynyk, some savvy veterans, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly. I would stay away from betting on or against the Raptors early on in the season. Then you'll have the Nets against the Hawks. The Hawks have got to run the Nets out of there. They've got to show Trae Young he's gonna be like James Harden. He's gonna be running the show every play again. He's gonna be Luka Doncic level of usage. So the Hawks should get it going at some point. All they need is a couple of spurts where Trae Young gets hot, and they'll beat the Brooklyn Nets pretty easily. Then you'll have the Bucks going against the Sixers. Now the Sixers aren't going to have Joel Embiid. They're not going to have Paul George. So the Bucks have got to win this game. Otherwise, it's going to just look a little bad for them. Now, does it really matter at the end of the day? They'll both be playoff teams. You really just want health. But still, you want the Bucks to come out and sort of assert their dominance with Giannis, and Damian Lillard has been revved up and ready to go all summer long. He's been putting in work to try and show that last season was a fluke, and he's going to be much better this year alongside Giannis. Now, the Bucks also they are not going to have Chris Middleton, but come on, you can't compare that to the other team not having Joel Embiid and not having Paul George. So we should look for the Bucks to be dominant in this one. The Hornets will play the Rockets. The Hornets have a couple of young stars who they're looking to try and get something going with this year, but the Rockets are coming off a very, very hot finish at the end of last season. So you got to think that the Rockets are going to come along and get this game. You've got to think that. I don't see how you can bet on the Hornets here. Then you have the Bulls against the Pelicans. The Pelicans are a weird team. Super, super weird. They brought in DeJounte Murray. They already had guys who were sort of at the guard spot, CJ McCollum. They have, Zion is out there, and you have Brandon Ingram. It's a confusing bunch on the Pelicans, and the Bulls are even just as confusing. They have Lonzo Ball, who's supposed to play in this game. You have Zach LaVine, who everyone wants out of there. You have Josh Giddey getting inserted into the action. You have Kobe White trying to just play basketball and not let all the distractions get to him. Of all these other players, they got rid of DeRozan. So two teams with some significant change, and the Pelicans just have a much better team. I don't see how you can say otherwise. So I would say unless Zach LaVine comes in and just bombs away, this is a Pelicans game all the way for this one. The Pelicans played really well for most of the year last year and kind of fizzled out at the end of the season, dropping their seeding for the playoffs, and then didn't do too well in the playoffs. Zion's injury was part of it, for sure, and McCollum and Ingram not playing well in the playoffs, that was also a massive factor. But regular season here, they should be okay. They should beat the Chicago Bulls. You'll have the Memphis Grizzlies against the Jazz. Now, to start the year, as long as John Morant is healthy, I would bet on the Memphis Grizzlies every single game. And certainly I'd bet on all the games to be close, to at least be close, because John Morant is going to put on an absolute show. He's crazy. He plays with a crazy style. And he'll probably get injured within the first 2 weeks of the season. Now, until he does get injured, they're going to be great. That's what I think. They're going to be fantastic behind him, behind Edey, and behind Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark is back. They have all the pieces they need. Desmond Bane is there. Marcus Smart will play some defense. They've got everything they need. They have G.G. Jackson, who we'll see how they insert him into the lineup now that their main guys are back. It should be really exciting for as long as it lasts with healthy John Morant in the Western Conference on the Grizzlies. You'll have the Suns playing the Clippers. If the Suns lose to the Clippers here, it's going to just get dark real quick in Phoenix. They're going to have to show what they're made of against the Clippers. It's going to be James Harden ball. Are you going to let James Harden go out single-handedly beat Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Tyus Jones? The Suns are improved a little bit. Tyus Jones is a key upgrade there. Are you going to really let James Harden go out and Harden ball you and beat you in the first game of the year? The Suns have got to win this game. They've got to. The Warriors will play the Trailblazers, and the Warriors they have to win. I mean, if the Warriors can't beat the Trailblazers on opening night, the Trailblazers are potentially the worst team to ever exist. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the Warriors, if they're going to beat anyone this year, they've got to beat the Trailblazers. The Warriors have an easy schedule to start the season, and they've got to take advantage of that because the West is going to be so tough. If they start off and they only go 1-4 or 2-3 in the first 5, that's not good for the Golden State Warriors. They got to build up a nice little cushion using the easy part of their schedule. Tomorrow night, you'll see the Celtics come back against the Wizards. That should be an easy game for the Celtics. The Spurs and the Mavericks are going to play each other. You got to think the Mavericks want to start hot and not. They have a healthy Luka. So, when's the last time they had a totally healthy Luka Doncic? They should pick up from where they left off. But, Wembanyama will be interesting to see him with Chris Paul. Chris Paul is going to elevate that team. Is not even a question. A brilliant signing for a team like the Spurs who just need to establish a culture. And Chris Paul can really help them do that. They're not going to go all the way, but they can certainly improve their team. The Thunder will play the Nuggets. What an opening matchup for those two teams. The Thunder against the Nuggets. You got to give the Thunder the upper hand. We got to see how Jamal Murray looks to start this year. You got to see how much the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's going to Orlando is going to affect the Denver Nuggets. You got to see who is going to step up. Is Russell Westbrook going to have a statistical comeback? I think he will. Not that he's necessarily going to help them get a lot more wins than last season, but I think he's going to have a good statistical year just because someone is going to have to break out for the Nuggets out of necessity, out of extra playing time now that KCP is gone. Then the Timberwolves will play the Kings, and we'll see if they can get back on track. Very excited to see DeMar DeRozan in a Kings uniform and whether that actually is enough to push the needle one way or the other. This looks like a real exciting season upcoming. The trend is going to be Eastern Conference is not going to matter as much because we already know who the playoff teams are going to be in the Eastern Conference. It's going to be the Celtics. It's going to be the Cavaliers. You're going to have the Pacers, the Heat in the play-in range. You're going to have the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be there. The Orlando Magic are going to be near the top. You'll have the 76ers in there, and you'll have the Knicks in there. So those are the teams who are going to make it. It's not really going to be too questionable unless there's massive injuries. And then the West is just going to be crazy. Every game is going to matter. Outside of the Clippers, outside of the Jazz, maybe the Spurs, outside of the Blazers, every other team is going to be, out of 15 teams there's going to be 10 or 11 of them who are going to be very competitive with all the other teams. So, exciting to look forward to. We'll see you in a couple of days. We'll be back in a few days for the next podcast. We'll have a lot to talk about, a lot of opening storylines, just like we had from last night. As always, we're your source for a great time every time. And until next time, we are out.